It's time for bookkeeping, beer, and BS. Shawn, is there anything else from a execution standpoint that was running through your mind where you're like, we got to make sure we talk about this X, Y, and Z before you got to bail on us?
The only thing I can mention is that's in my head. Just this week, there's been a number of clients of ours that we got somebody through the system, or a couple people through the system. They do a phone interview, and everything went great. They're thinking of having them in a couple of days for a face-to-face interview. And my comment was, well, they're probably going to be picking up their first paycheck from your competition by the time that happens. You need to leave whatever you're doing right now and go interview this person. If they make it through our system, which is only about 5 to 10% of the people that come into our screening process make it through to even qualify for an interview, let alone, I don't know where, you either do a phone interview, and with technicians now, at this time of the year, do a phone interview if you want, but you better hire them from that. Don't make them go through 2 interviews, because they're just not going to do it. They've probably, so you guys know the importance of that, but I can't overstate it. It's just amazing that's still kind of a mindset with some people out there, that they can take their time getting these people hired. It's just mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, you've got 24 hours, if that.
Tops. Yep.
And you wouldn't do that with a client, right? You'd be like, yeah, I'll get back to him in a few days. You'd be like, here's the estimate, Mrs. Jones. I got you on the schedule for, the soonest I could possibly get you on.
Yep.
You wouldn't be waiting to get back to him. That triggered something, and then I totally got sidetracked and lost it. The other direction that I always go with that, Shawn, is everybody's always afraid to spend money to go find that person. This literally came from a conversation with Nikki, who's on our recruiting team and also runs one of our locations. And she was like, yeah, this person just said their recruiting budget was like $100. And I was like, yeah. You can't afford not to hire somebody. Like, the person you're going to hire is going to make you $100,000 to $200,000 a year or more, depending on your industry. Like, how can you only afford to spend $100 to find that person? Like, what do you spend $5 on marketing to find a client? Like, that's the ratio, right? Your clients are worth a few $1,000, your employees are worth a few $100,000. So you better be willing to spend, like 100 times more on your employees. So if you're only willing to spend $100 on recruiting for that employee, that tells me you're willing to spend $1 on marketing for a client. Well, I can't imagine that's true.
Yeah, that type of budget for marketing would probably land you a real good spot on Google on page 2. So
page 22, man.
Yeah, if that, right. So that's what it's going to do on job boards. I mean, it's an auction. That's what this market's all about. It's, you get creative on boots on the ground. You might find an employee here or there, maybe. But if you're playing the digital game and you're on all the job boards and platforms out there in the world, it's an auction. And you're basically just saying $100 for that employee, and every one of your competition's going $1,000 for an employee, man, no problem. Mm-hmm. Who's going to win that game?
The other thing that came to mind that I meant to talk about was there's nothing wrong with hiring somebody and firing them on the first day. Like, that's the interview. Your interview is like, when they show up, you're going to see exactly what they're made out of. You could sit and ask them all the kinds of questions you want until you're blue in the face on an interview, and they're just going to tell you what they want to hear if they're good at interviewing. The best interview is always day 1 and day 2 on the job. And there's nothing wrong with hiring somebody and they're an employee until they're not. And back to cold, I forget the context of it, but we were talking about earlier, just like the cold hard truth thing that we were touching on. I heard Cory, Ron Wolf, who was the old Packers GM, one of the things he would say to like every rookie that they signed was, hey, welcome to the team. You're here until we find somebody better. And it's like, man, that's harsh, but it's absolutely 100% dead on true. And it's the same in our businesses. Like, you're here until we find somebody better. Please don't make us have to go look, because that sucks for both of us, but you're all here until we find somebody better. Right. It's like, man, that's a cold way to put it, but it was just so spot on.